As you get older in life, you start to accumulate more and more things, more and more possessions, meet more and more people, and get attached to more and more different things. But is that a good thing? My name's Tor, and I'm here to discuss why your material attachments are the cause of all suffering. Now, that's a big statement to make, that material attachments are the cause of all suffering, but it's the truth. That every situation you've ever been in which you've experienced suffering, in which you've experienced loss, in which you've experienced pain, whether that be physical or emotional, has all come down to some form of attachment that you have as an individual. Now, in order to explain this concept, we first need to discuss what attachment means. What does it mean to be attached to something? Well, attachment in itself means that there is something in the external world that you have put a high emphasis on. That's what attachment means. It's something that you believe that you could not live without in a lot of cases. Something that you think that if that was taken from your life, or if that was to change, it would cause you some kind of inconvenience. It would be something that would be difficult for you to manage. That's how I would define an attachment in this sense. Whenever you're attached to something, you're at a fear of loss of that thing, or you're at a fear of that circumstance changing. An example could be that you've got a job right now and you're attached to that job. You know that that job provides you a good source of income. You know that that job is something that you can manage well, and that's a job that you enjoy. Now, those are all fine, but if you're attached to the circumstance, and if you believe that if that job was to be taken from you, it would cause you discomfort, then that can potentially lead to suffering. The irony of this is, even when you're in the job itself, and you haven't lost the job, it's still causing you suffering because you have the fear of loss. You have somewhere deep rooted in your mind the idea that it could potentially be taken from you in the future, which now leads to you today doing certain things and taking certain actions that could potentially be damaging or harmful to you in the short term. An example of that is someone who wants to work too many hours. They choose to work for very long hours because they think that that will lead to them keeping their job for longer. But that's because they're attached to their job situation. Let's look at the flip side. Imagine they weren't attached to the job at all. They were completely detached from the job. Then they would never work more than they needed to. They would never lift a finger for longer than they needed to. They never stay behind for longer than they needed to. They would never do anything above and beyond what is the specific requirements of that role, unless they chose to for their own benefit. Because that person's detached from the outcome. Now, this is just the example of a job, but you try and translate this and use it in any other situation in life, whether that be friendships that you're attached to, relationships that you're attached to, money that you're attached to, your house, your car. All of these things are attachments, all of them. And all of them eventually lead to suffering. If not in the moment, they will lead to suffering when you eventually lose those things. Now, the harsh reality of attachment that a lot of people can't come to realize is that attachment is everything. It goes into everything. You could be attached to this body. I could be attached to this physical body. It's in good condition now, but as I get older, it's going to start to get weary. It's going to wear away. Eventually, it's going to die. If I'm attached to that and I worry about that, then that's going to cause stress in my everyday life. I'm going to be worried when I'm crossing the road, or I'm going to be worried when I'm eating bad food about, well, how this could potentially impact my health and all these kind of things. So it's okay to be attached to some degree, because if I was completely detached from my body, I may abuse it. I may not treat it in the right way. And it's okay to be attached to some degree. But what's even better, and this is the best state for someone to be in, is to be detached from the outcome, but still do the right things. And this is when you're in a state of flow. So let's use the example of my body again. I know that in order for me to keep fit and healthy, I should exercise, I should eat right, I should not smoke, I should not drink too much alcohol, and these kind of things. It's good for me to know those things, but to be attached to those things would mean that I'm building up an obsession, which is causing me stress in my everyday life and making my everyday life challenging. However, if I can detach from them and I can remain in flow, what that means is I know that I'm not going to do those things and I shouldn't do those things. But in not doing those things, I'm not inconveniencing myself at all. I'm just doing those things because they're what's natural to me. I'm not forcing myself to do something like that. So when you see people who maybe take crash course diets or, quick ways to get fit, that's an attachment to an outcome. You want your body to look a certain way in a certain time frame. And because of that, you see so many of those people fail, or they relapse and go back to what they looked like before, or things just don't work out for them because they were attached to the outcome. They weren't detached from the outcome and just enjoy the process. Instead, they were attached to the outcome and didn't enjoy the process, which is the recipe for failure, because essentially you're doing everything the wrong way around. And that's what eventually causes suffering. Now, this is a harsh reality that all of your attachments in life will eventually lead to some form of suffering, whether that be your family, your wife, your husband, your children, your parents, your siblings, your friends, relatives. All of those are people that you're attached to. And one day all of those people will be gone from your life, or you may be gone from their life. And that's a harsh reality of this world. However, accepting that at the earliest is the best thing that you can do. And by accepting that, essentially, you've detached yourself from the outcome, and you'd rather enjoy every moment that you can have with those people rather than thinking about the future when those people might not be around. Now, there is a fine line between attachment and detachment, because if you're too detached, maybe you won't necessarily even think of spending time with your family because you think you don't care enough. Or maybe you won't bother going to that job because you don't care enough. But when we talk about detached in this sense, we don't mean detached from the situation. We mean detached from the outcome. We mean detached from the end goal. We mean that if you have a goal in mind of how much time you want to spend with your family or how much work you need to do in order to get your salary, you're detached from that overall outcome. You do choose to show up, and you do choose to enter the situation. You do choose to meet your family. You do choose to go to work. You do choose to earn your money. You do choose to look after your body, but you're not attached to what your body looks like. You're not attached to how much money you have. You're not attached to how long your family may live for and all these kind of things, because those attachments are the ones that cause suffering. All you need to do is go through the process. And in going through that process, you are able to experience life to its fullest without worrying about the future, without worrying about what may happen next. And you're able to transcend those material attachments that can cause you suffering.